Everything in life starts with your mindset, your headspace, your attitude. It's not just an abstract concept, it's your superpower. Ever wondered, why can they do it and I can't? The difference isn't luck or resources, it's the foundation they built long before success arrived. Plenty of people have achieved more with less, but the right mindset is what sets them apart. Welcome to the Mindset course. Congratulations on taking this crucial step. This is the foundation of your journey. I want to acknowledge your curiosity and bravery in making this decision. It's not easy to pivot from a reselling mindset, especially when all of the conversation on YouTube revolves around it. This will be the most challenging course to sit through, as it lays the foundation for everything that follows. It's more philosophical than the others and may feel a bit dry at times. There's no hands-on action here, but this groundwork is essential. Think of it as setting the stage before we dive into the practical, hands-on work ahead. Stick with it, because the rest of the course will only get easier and more exciting. By embracing the right mindset now, you're setting yourself up for success in every other class, from research and innovation to execution and refinement. So keep an open mind, get ready to embrace the journey ahead, and let's begin. If the groundwork you laid yesterday and the progress you made today contribute nothing to the sustainability and growth of tomorrow, then you need to ask yourself, are you really building a business or just running one? Establishing the mindset for success. Why traditional business is building a business and reselling or dropshipping is not. A strong mindset helps you avoid the shortcut mentality, such as reselling or dropshipping, and leads to long-term success. Traditional business models are tested and proven. They don't rely on gimmicks or fast tricks. People struggle when they skip the groundwork and attempt shortcuts. The power of mindset. Understanding the right mentality. Success doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, expertise, and adaptability. Becoming an expert in your field is non-negotiable. You need deep familiarity with your niche to spot gaps, identify opportunities, and innovate towards them. Research is driven by this mindset. It's not just surface-level research. It's about actively seeking knowledge to develop a deep understanding of your product, market, and potential. Avoid shortcuts. The limits of reselling and dropshipping. These methods are shortcuts, quick money schemes that skip the foundation of real business. Without expertise and understanding, they often lead to frustration and inconsistency. Starting without the right fundamentals is like building on sand. Unstable, unsustainable, and guaranteed to hold you back.
So most people will tell you that there's many ways of doing business on platforms such as eBay on the internet, when the truth is what they're talking about is many different small nuances in doing business. But there's only three main ways of actually doing business on eBay, and that is between drop shipping, a retail arbitrage, which is known as eBay reselling, and then traditional business models. So right now we're going to get into exactly the difference. So the first model that we're going to cover is dropshipping and why dropshipping is flawed. Now it's good to know that there are two types of dropshipping. There is one policy compliant version and then policy non-compliant version. And the policy non-compliant version kind of sounds like this. A seller will get onto eBay and then put up a listing that they found for cheaper somewhere else, such as Temu or AliExpress. They'll wait for the sale and then immediately, once they have the sale, go purchase it off of AliExpress and then punch in the customer's information. That is heavily frowned upon. Don't do that. You will get your account suspended very quickly when they find out. The other method is when the seller has something specifically worked out with the fulfiller. So here's how it works, okay? You could sign up with all sorts of drop shipping fulfillment centers, and they have catalogs ready for people just like you with an account. So what happens is that you talk to the supplier, you sign up with them, they'll provide you the catalog, and the catalog will have stock images and all the basic info. So you, the drop shipper, reselling these items, will go ahead and put them on your eBay account or whatever platform that you're working with. And immediately what you'll notice is that there is very high competition. And because of that high competition, you'll also notice that there is low sales volume, okay? And then that is basically because of there's no product differentiation, meaning that you're selling this item, so is somebody else, so is somebody else, so is somebody else, because they all receive the exact same catalog using the exact same stock images and having the same exact product info, because you're all selling the exact same thing. So it quickly becomes a race to the bottom of who could sell it for the lowest price in order to get that sales volume. And that's why you're going to have both low sales volume and you'll notice low margins. So the reason is because of exactly what we're talking about. There's no exclusivity here. You don't control the product. And the worst part is that this goes on as a vicious cycle, because when you don't have any exclusivity over the product, one of the worst things that could happen is if you actually were lucky enough to get in early on a certain product so that your listing has a lot of organic traffic. The issue with this is that the moment the supplier of the fulfillment center decides to discontinue this item for any reason, you also discontinue this item. So when you look at this whole business model, the only way of pushing forward with this or advancing it in any way is basically just to spam more listings. You want to go through the catalog and list everything that they sell as much as you can in order to get as many sales every single day. However, I argue that the problem with this model is that where you saved in labor, because now you don't have to go out and do your own sourcing, you just source directly from this catalog. All that work that's saved, the business model itself more than makes up for it with all the busy work that's inherently baked into this business model. And what I mean by that is every single time there is an issue with your sales, okay, meaning the order itself, you have to contact the customer. And as you contact the customer, you also have to get an okay with your supplier, whether it's going to be returned or not. This is many times when you think of what an RMA is, which is a return merchandise authorization, you need to get that with your supplier. Also, many times after we've done the sale, you want to reconcile the differences in the bookkeeping between you and the supplier if you're getting paid by the supplier, right? Basically, as you have a lot more listings, your account starts to get more and more chaotic. And between every single day of juggling all the customer service back and forth with possible things that might have got shipped wrong or returns, and then dealing with the supplier and dealing with the customers, you're going to be sitting in front of the computer much more than you think. It's really not a walk in the park as most people think it is.
The dropshipping model, the illusion of profitability. Dropshipping seems like a low-risk, high-reward model, but hidden costs and fierce competition erode margins. Unstable supply chain, weak supplier relationships, and razor-thin margins make long-term sustainability nearly impossible. No competitive edge. Selling the same generic products as everyone else forces a race to the bottom on price. No brand, no longevity. Without control over branding or product differentiation, there's no foundation for lasting success. Dependency risk. If your supplier discontinues an item, you lose both the product and all the effort invested in making it successful. Operational chaos. While sourcing and shipping are outsourced, the model demands constant coordination between supplier and customer, all while managing massive listings.
So this diagram is to explain the business model of reselling arbitrage. And this is basically the dominating conversation on YouTube right now. Basically, any item out there starts with the original brand, and they get it produced from the manufacturer. Now from here, they might sell directly to a big box store such as JCPenney or Nordstrom or Macy's, or they might go through a wholesale distributor and then it goes to a big box retailer such as Best Buy. Now, from here, the retailer and the consumer, this is where the main market is. And between the original brand to the wholesale distributor to the big box store, this is where they make their money through high volume traffic, because they sell it directly to the distributor or the big bucks at larger quantities. So the highest value possible for the price to be, right, is between the retailer and the consumer. We already know that. Now, this is where you come in over here as the reseller. You're picking up the item in a second-hand market type of way, because the first-hand market, whereas the high value is happening in this section over here. Now, from the retailer, things that don't sell, things out of season, things that are irregular, usually go to some type of liquidation method. And a liquidation method could be anywhere between like a Ross Dress for Less or a DD's Discount or a TJ Maxx, possibly flea markets and other types of liquidation methods. Even if you ever seen specific stores called liquidators. Now, you could go ahead and then purchase from there at a lower value because they're not selling directly to the consumer anymore. And then you go ahead and then put it on eBay. The same thing happens is that you could also source your items directly from the consumer because the consumer is either going to have garage sales or estate sales where they're getting rid of stuff that they were holding on to, or they donated stuff to thrift stores such as Goodwill, Salvation Army. And this is a different kind of secondhand market where you could pick up things. But you get the idea where the whole concept of what reselling arbitrage is to not just buy low and sell for high. Because when you talk about buying low and selling high, all businesses do that. That's called turning a profit. That's not what arbitrage is. Arbitrage is specifically about buying low from a certain market and then cycling it over to another market and attempting to sell it for high. And the reason why attempting to sell it for high is way more accurate of a depiction is because if you watch a lot of videos out there of what's sold, you'll see many of the resellers themselves either end up lowering the price or taking offers to lower the price. So again, you're still in a cycle of a race to the bottom here because many of the items you pick up are already items of existence in the world. So more oftentimes than not, the items that you put on platforms such as eBay already exist by other sellers as well. So the moment that you dive into this business model, you're almost guaranteed to just jump directly into a saturated field.
The arbitrage model, eBay reselling. Arbitrage isn't just about buying low and selling high. That's what all businesses do. It's about sourcing discounted goods from one market and attempting to sell for a higher price by repositioning these items at another market. The issue: one-off items don't allow repeatable success. Chasing individual sales without a foundation for long-term growth leads to stagnation.
This is a full model mapped out of the workflow of exactly how reselling works. Because of the nature of the products that you're trying to sell, and you're taking a shortcut with just directly selling things that are already in existence, and you're offering pretty much nothing new to the market, you would do your best on your research with doing two things. Either you would use a sell-through rate method, or you would use something like a BOLO list. So what are these two things? Well, a sell-through rate method is basically going through a snapshot of what's sold on eBay. So you would open up eBay, search for the product that you're probably going to sell, and then see how it did in the past 30 to 90 days. And depending on how other people have sold this, you would attempt to do the same thing. A BOLO list is a be on the lookout list. And what that means is other recommendations from people who are saying that these items are hot or things that you feel that might sell. And so you have a mental checklist of what would sell. So the issue with these two particular strategies is, number one, if you go through a sell-through rate method, you are trying to make a prediction based on a snapshot from the past. And the problem with this is that it's a very reactive strategy rather than a proactive strategy. And what that means is that if the item is at the end of its trend, you could possibly use a SDR method and then end up stuck with the item because it's based on past ideas. Now, when you talk about something like the BOLO list, right, you're talking about having a mental checklist so that you could go out into the world and start making decisions on the fly, which usually is never that great of an idea. Imagine going out and just shopping for anything or making business decisions on the fly versus spending a lot more time on research and development and innovation and thinking about stuff before you even spend a dime. So let's just say we did our research the best as we can. And then the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to travel out and then we're going to source an item. Basically, we're going to go to thrift stores, discount stores, garage sales, estate sales, exactly as shown before in the previous diagram. and then we'll travel back and then we'll start preparing the item. Now, depending on the item, it'll go through some kind of inspection or cleaning, repairs, testing, authentication, sorting. And then we have to photograph the item because when you sell things online, pictures is worth 1,000 words, right? So for the photography, we have to make sure that we've cleaned everything up so that like we have good staging, clean shots, and close-up shots, and then we take photos of tags and labels if applicable, as well as some measurements where applicable. Now, finally, we have to work on the listing, and the listing is obviously, things that you cannot get around, which is working on the keywords, the titles, the item specifics, photos, descriptions, pricing, so on and so forth. Now, you also have to keep in mind that when you travel out, the trip time and the gas, and then you have to load the items. And then when you travel back after you've picked up some things, the trip time, the gas, and then unloading the items. Now, only two outcomes can happen. Either the item sold or the item didn't sell. If the item didn't sell, then your money is tied in the item, and now I cannot reinvest that into getting a new item. If the item does sell, then I immediately have to travel back out and get a replacement for it. Otherwise, there's nothing else to sell. So when we attempt to do this business model at scale, what you're seeing in front of you here is 20 items that we sourced, processed, and listed all in front of us, waiting to find out if they're going to sell or not sell. So what you're seeing in front of you here is a lot of acts of labor. Sure, we could have went out and sourced all 20 of these things at once so they share that. However, every single listing, every single photograph, every single item that we had to process, clean up, and inspect is part of a single act of labor that we had to be involved in every single one of these sales. Not to mention, the moment they sell, we have to replace it immediately. And if they don't sell, then we're going to possibly reach back into our pocket in order to quickly find something else that will sell in order to pay the bills. So on this screen, I'm just trying to give you a visual representation of exactly what 100 listings would look like, what your efforts, your blood, sweat, and tears put into eBay reselling would look like with just 100 items. And there are plenty of people out there with 400 items, 500 items, 2,000 items, constantly circulating and juggling and replacing, refreshing. So one of the biggest criticisms that I have for eBay reselling is specifically the way that items sell after you source them. It's just the nature of the business. Because when you go out and you're making decisions on the fly or doing research that's based on past sales, then what ends up happening is when you freshly source 100 different items, the grid on the left is meant to represent 100 freshly sourced items. And we have not yet put this on listings just yet. And the grid on the right is to show the natural progression of how the items sell. The green tiles represent things that sell within a week. The yellow tiles will represent things that sell possibly in about a month. The orange is maybe about 2 to 3 months later. And then the black is maybe they'll sell, maybe they don't sell, but it's going to take a much longer time. So it's very arguable whether or not they're going to move 8 months later, 3 years later, or never move at all. But the point is that all your items that you freshly sourced are going to move differently. So therefore, everything that you purchase and as you sell them over time, it's going to eventually look something like this. So now the biggest issue that I see with this simulation is that as we source more items, the items would always sell roughly in this progression. Now, it's not really important what the ratio of items are. Certain sellers are going to get more green, certain sellers are going to get more black. But the problem is that nobody sells with 100% perfect sell-through rate. So the issue is that over time, as we keep running this simulation, there's going to be a lot of product that's left over. And this product that's left over is going to start looking like this within our inventory. Now, the yellow, green, and orange are always going to go away because that's what's done and already sold. But as we source new inventory, this is what's going to be left over. So now new products sourced over time, your inventory actually looks something like this. Yes, again, the black tiles might sell after 3, 6, 8 months. We don't actually know. And the new tiles over here is going to be constantly doing the same simulation over and over again. The question is, what do we do with all of the black tiles that are left over? What is the exit strategy here? Exactly what is the plan? So the big question is that all of these items that were sourced over time begin to look like this. And what do we do with all of the rest of the black tiles? Well, there's not exactly a clear exit strategy in regards to this. Some resellers would try to pack up all of these goods and then create pallets out of them or combination boxes in order to liquidate them off to other resellers. The biggest problem that we come across is that no matter how we try to scale this particular business model, we're always going to come through the exact same simulations here, where a portion sells out very quickly, followed by another portion and another portion. Then finally, we're going to have inventory that we're left stuck with. So what I'm depicting over here is the potency of your items as you source them over time. There's always going to be a portion that sells out quickly, and there's always going to be a portion that you're stuck with. Ultimately, a seller might accumulate a lot of listings over time. However, most of the listings actually look like this and haven't sold for many months.
The structural inefficiencies of reselling. The inefficiencies in reselling are structural, and there is no real solution within the reseller framework itself. One-off items, inherently inefficient. Scaling labor means scaling effort equally. Limited bulk, slightly better, but still bottlenecked by supply shortages. Unlimited production supply, the only model where efficiency and scalability align.
Now we will cover the business model that we will be teaching in this course. This is the traditional business flowchart, which is to show you guys exactly how this business model works. We start by strategically creating a USP. A USP is a unique selling proposition. You'll learn more about this as we go through with the classes. But essentially, you want to develop a unique item so that we could stand apart from others in the market. That way, we're not running a business where it's just a race to the bottom with the prices. The next thing that we do is that we're going to try our best to order a minimum order quantity of it, because that way we mitigate our risk of what we're putting our money into. Then we will execute by preparing a good listing and putting it up on the major platforms, then monitor the sales performance. Now, essentially, there's only 3 possible outcomes in our business model, which is A, B, and C: the desirable outcome, the less than desirable outcome, and the bad outcome. Now, for the A, this is exactly what we're looking for. Let's assume our minimum order quantity, we had a chance to purchase something at as low as 200 units. So this item is now moving 5, 6, 7, 8 units a day. That totally warrants that we should reorder this item, and we have established ourselves a winner. So this is a core item now established. It's a proven item, and it's a confirmed winner. So what we're trying to do is collect the A outcome often, repeat this process over and over again, because essentially what we're selling in our business are proven items, are confirmed items, not items that we think are going to sell, but things that we know will sell because they have the track record to say so. B is the less than desirable outcome. What happens over here is that, okay, it's not moving great, but it's still moving, maybe 2 or 3 units every single day. Well, when you think about moving 2 or 3 units every single day, if you only have 200 units of it, you'll recoup your money back within a short amount of time, say about 3 months or so. So we probably won't do anything about it. We'll just leave it as is, let it move 2 or 3 a day. And this is basically the exit strategy where we're just going to phase out the item, just let it sell. When it finishes, we're done. However, it's also possible that because it's selling 2 or 3 a day, word of mouth gets around, the metadata accumulates, and this item starts picking up pace, and now it's moving 5 or 6 a day. So B outcome actually becomes A outcome. So that could also happen too. Now, C outcome is the worst outcome, right? It's not really moving, and we'll probably have to help it out a little bit by lowering the price some. But the thing is this. In the traditional business model, we're not using a BOLO way to make our decisions. And we're definitely not just using an STR method to do our decision making. We're going to spend way more time into research and choosing the item correctly before we even spend a dime on it, and therefore see the bad outcome of poor sales where we actually need to close out the item by lowering the price is highly, highly unlikely if you've done proper research on this where our item is a good market fit for what people are looking for. Very unlikely that C outcome would happen after doing so much homework.
The traditional business model, what we're teaching. Long-term stability, creative control, and brand building, a structured approach that has stood the test of time. We'll dive deep into this model as the course progresses. But for now, understand that the key difference between reselling, dropshipping, and a real business is control. Control over your products, your brand, and your long-term success. If you're just flipping items, you're at the mercy of the market. If you're building something, you're setting the rules. The only sustainable path is one where you control the product, the supply, and the scalability. That's why the business model we teach is built around those pillars: exclusivity, creative control, and long-term stability. We'll be breaking down each of these concepts step by step so you can actually apply them. What's the difference between a side hustle and a sustainable business? It's a question every reseller eventually faces. At first glance, reselling feels like a business. You buy low, sell high, and make a profit. But without structure and scale, is it truly sustainable? Imagine a kid selling lemonade. Every cup is made fresh, one at a time, by hand. It's simple, but there's a limit. Every sale requires physical effort. If they don't squeeze the lemons, there's nothing to sell. And when demand grows, they can't just work harder indefinitely. There are only so many hours in a day. Now contrast that with a bottled lemonade company. Instead of squeezing by hand, they automate. Instead of selling cups, they ship in bulk. This shift unlocks scalability. Production runs 24/7. Distribution reaches thousands, not dozens. Reselling follows the same pattern. Buying, listing, and shipping one-off items is like squeezing lemons all day. It works, but it's exhausting. Every sale depends on finding new products, packing, shipping, constantly repeating the cycle. And when stock runs out, the search begins again. It's a hustle, not a system. The real breakthrough happens when you move beyond one-offs to a reliable supply chain, when you control your inventory, not chase it. Automation replaces manual effort. Bulk ordering, streamlined logistics, this is how businesses scale. The result? A business that grows without being chained to daily tasks. Freedom to strategize, expand, and thrive. Reselling teaches the basics. Just like a lemonade stand, you learn how to buy, sell, and make a profit. But long-term success requires more than just repetition. To scale, you need to pivot, just like moving from selling cups on the street to getting bottled lemonade on store shelves. The difference? Systems, automation, and a supply chain that works for you, not against you. We understand that starting something new can feel formidable, and that's completely normal. It's natural to feel apprehensive. The feeling you're experiencing is called the barrier of entry. It might seem like a wide river to cross or a high mountain to climb, but in reality, these barriers are layers of protection. They filter out the less committed and create a space where only the determined can thrive. When businesses face challenge barriers and develop ways to overcome them, those same barriers transform into layers of protection. They ensure that your business stands out and isn't easily replicated. Just like the lemonade stand. Anyone can start one, but turning it into a brand like Minute Maid requires effort and innovation. This is why the barrier of entry is actually a good thing. You're not just avoiding shortcuts. You're trading one difficulty for another, but one that makes more sense. You can't fight high competition, but you can overcome the challenges that lead to long-term success. By the end of this course, you'll be armed with the tools to navigate those challenges, placing you in a stronger, more defensible position, far from the overcrowded, low-barrier competition. Now let's dive into the research class.